Good news doesn't excite you anymore. Bad news doesn't shake you. You watch things that used to make you laugh and feel nothing. You go through moments that should matter and they just don't. People ask how you're doing and you say fine because fine is easier than explaining that you're not sad, you're not depressed, you're just completely disconnected from your own emotional life. Like someone unplugged you and you've been running on emergency power ever since. Welcome to Unfiltered Adulthood, where we explore the quiet psychological shifts that reshape you in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. If this resonates, subscribe and hit like. She gets a promotion at work. The kind of promotion she worked toward for years. Her boss congratulates her. Her colleagues celebrate. She smiles and says thank you and goes through the motions of being pleased. But inside, there's nothing. No rush of pride. No sense of accomplishment. Just a flat acknowledgement that something happened and now she has more responsibilities. She wonders if something's wrong with her. Why isn't she happy? Why does this achievement that should feel significant feel like checking a box on a list? He watches his favorite show. The one that used to make him laugh out loud, that he'd quote to friends, that he looked forward to every week. But now he sits there, staring at the screen, and nothing lands. The jokes don't hit. The moments that should be emotional feel distant. He's watching but not experiencing. And when the episode ends, he can barely remember what happened because he wasn't really present for any of it. This is what emotional numbness looks like. It's not depression in the way most people understand it. It's not crying or breaking down or feeling overwhelmingly sad. It's the absence of feeling. A flatness that settles where emotions used to be. And it's more common than anyone talks about, especially in people who've spent years managing high stress, navigating loss, or just surviving circumstances that required them to keep going no matter what. She scrolls through social media and sees friends getting engaged, having babies, traveling to beautiful places. Things that used to spark joy or even envy now just register as information. She double taps the photos because that's what you do, but there's no feeling behind it. Just mechanical acknowledgement that someone's life is happening somewhere else while hers continues in this muted state. The numbness didn't arrive overnight. It came gradually, built up over months or years of pushing through. There were moments when emotions felt too big to handle, when feeling everything at full intensity was exhausting or painful or inconvenient. So the system adapted. It turned down the volume. Not consciously, not as a choice, but as protection. If you can't handle the lows, the brain reasons, we'll just flatten everything. And for a while, that works. The pain becomes manageable. The stress becomes tolerable. But the cost is that joy gets flattened too. Excitement. Anticipation. Connection. All of it muted to the same low hum. He goes through his days on autopilot. Morning coffee, commute, work, lunch, more work, commute home, dinner, TV, bed. Repeat. The routine is comfortable because it doesn't require feeling anything. There are no surprises. No emotional demands. Just tasks to complete and hours to fill. And somewhere in that routine, he forgot what it feels like to want something. To look forward to something. To feel anything beyond mild irritation or vague tiredness. People around her don't notice. She's still functional. Still shows up. Still participates in conversations and maintains relationships. She's learned to mirror the appropriate responses. When someone shares good news, she knows to smile and say congratulations. When someone's upset, she knows to look concerned and offer support. But it's performance, not feeling. She's going through the social script without the emotional content that's supposed to accompany it. And here's the complicated part. The numbness often develops as a response to feeling too much. To being overwhelmed by emotions that felt unmanageable. Maybe there was loss. Maybe there was prolonged stress. Maybe there was trauma, big or small. Maybe it was just the accumulation of years spent navigating a world that doesn't give you space to process what you're experiencing. So the emotional system shut down. Not entirely, but enough. Enough to keep functioning. Enough to survive. She remembers being a person who cried at movies. Who felt things deeply. Who got excited about plans and devastated by disappointments. But that person feels like someone she used to know, not someone she is anymore. And she's not sure when the transition happened. There wasn't a moment where she decided to stop feeling. It just faded. Like a dimmer switch slowly turning down until the room is almost dark and you don't realize it because your eyes adjusted to the change. He tries to force it sometimes. Puts on music that used to move him. Watches movies designed to make you feel something. Revisits memories that were once meaningful. But nothing breaks through. The wall between him and his emotions is too thick now. Built brick by brick every time he had to keep going when he wanted to fall apart. Every time he had to be strong when he felt weak. Every time feeling something would have been inconvenient or messy or too much. The problem with emotional numbness is that it's invisible. You can be drowning in it and no one knows. Because you still laugh at jokes, even if it's hollow. You still say you're fine, even if fine means nothing. You still function, even if functioning is all you're doing. And people assume that if you're not actively falling apart, you must be okay. But okay and numb are not the same thing. She goes to therapy and tries to explain it. The therapist asks what she's feeling and the answer is always some version of I don't know. Not because she's being evasive, but because there's genuinely nothing there to name. No sadness to work through. No anger to release. Just a blank space where feelings should be. And the therapist works with her to understand that this blankness is itself a response. A protective mechanism that kicked in when the alternative was too painful. Numbness is not the absence of emotion. It's emotion that's been buried so deep it can't reach the surface anymore. Every feeling that got shoved down because there wasn't time or space or safety to process it. Every moment that required you to keep it together when you were falling apart. Every situation where showing emotion would have been punished or dismissed or used against you. All of that gets stored somewhere. And eventually, the storage gets so full that the system just shuts down the intake valve entirely. He realizes he can't remember the last time he genuinely wanted something. Not needed, not obligated to do, but actually wanted. The idea of desire feels foreign. Like a language he used to speak but hasn't practiced in so long he's forgotten the words. And without desire, there's no motivation. No excitement. Just a passive movement through time where one day looks like the next and nothing feels worth pursuing. The path back from numbness isn't quick or linear. It starts with recognizing that the numbness is there. That what feels like nothing is actually something. A defense mechanism that served a purpose but has overstayed. The volume didn't turn down by accident. It turned down because at some point, the noise was unbearable. And the first step to turning it back up is acknowledging why it got turned down in the first place. She starts small. Not trying to feel big emotions, but noticing small ones. The warmth of sun on her skin. The taste of coffee. The sound of rain. Sensory experiences that don't require emotional processing but can remind the system that it's capable of registering input. It's not dramatic. It's not a breakthrough moment. It's just tiny cracks in the wall. He talks to someone who gets it. Not someone trying to fix him or tell him to think positive or snap out of it. Just someone who understands that numbness is real and valid and not a choice. And in that conversation, something loosens. Not a lot. But enough to remember that there are people who won't judge the flatness. Who won't demand emotion he doesn't have. Who will just sit with him in the gray space until color starts to seep back in. The numbness doesn't disappear because you decide it should. It fades when it's safe to feel again. When the circumstances that required shutting down are no longer present. When you've built enough stability that letting emotions back in won't destroy you. And sometimes that takes months. Sometimes years. And sometimes it requires help from people trained to guide you back to feelings you've spent so long avoiding. She cries for the first time in months, and it's not because something terrible happened. It's because she watched a scene in a show where someone said "I see you" and something in that broke through. And the crying feels strange because she's out of practice. But it also feels like proof that the system isn't broken. Just offline. And maybe, slowly, it's starting to reboot. Feeling nothing isn't a permanent state. It's a protective pause. And when you're ready, when the volume starts coming back up, it won't be gentle. It'll be messy and overwhelming and uncomfortable. Because all those feelings you couldn't handle before are still there. Waiting. And processing them will be hard. But hard is different than numb. Hard means you're alive again. You feel nothing because at some point, feeling everything was too much. And your system did what it had to do to keep you moving. But you don't have to stay there. The volume can come back up. Slowly. At your pace. And when it does, you'll remember what it's like to feel something again. And it won't always be pleasant. But it will be real. And real beats numb every time.